Hello, I am Kyung-Ro Kim from the Hanmaum Church in Chincheon. I retired as a superintendent of schools last year. I want to share with you how God allowed me the grace of spreading the gospel to schools while I was appointed. My parents fled to the South during the Korean War. My father didn't know anyone in the South, so, to survive, he believed that we needed to be strong. So he made all 5 of his sons do sports. My father trained me in wrestling before I entered elementary school. Then in 4th grade, I met a teacher who was a trained boxer. He saw that I had talent and gave me special training, including many hours of sparring. In the 7th grade, I chose judo as an extracurricular activity. This was a crucial decision that shaped my entire life. One day in the 7th grade, some 8th graders picked on me, saying that I was too arrogant. They threatened to beat me up unless I joined their gang. So I punched the biggest of them and knocked him down. They were completely taken by surprise and just stood there, speechless, so I made my escape quickly. After I came home, I was still angry and upset. So I went to each one of them and beat them up one by one. During the rest of middle school, I confronted bullies from schools across town and beat them up one by one, too. Even so, I was a good student and studied very hard. I was obedient to my parents, and I thought I was the best son among the 5. I was proud to be admitted into a prestigious high school, and I dreamt of becoming a successful and smart athlete. But even in high school, I was not free from getting involved in fights. Now the school gangs were challenging me in groups of 2 or 3. So I needed a strategy too. I took Mr. Badal Choi, a karate master, as a role model who was famous for his special deadly blow. And I went out to the schoolyard every night to practice the skill of knocking a person down with just one blow. As a result, before long, I became the #1 fighter among the high school kids in my town. During college, something eventful happened. It started with a watchmaker who worked at my father's shop. While drunk, he assaulted 2 members of the Korean intelligence agency. A truck full of men from the agency came over to take revenge. And when they arrived, they started to wreck the shop. My father told us to wait behind the crowd until they were done. After they smashed everything, they looked around and said, "Hey, why is no one stopping us?" At that moment, my father yelled, "Charge!" And we 3 brothers put our fear of death behind us and charged. Then we began to knock them down. The ones I punched got knocked out and couldn't get up. The wind had been knocked out of them. Within several minutes, most of them had collapsed or run away. After a while, their boss showed up to confirm that we were just students, not members of a gang. My older brother and I were in college, and my younger one was in high school. Had we not been students, we would have been in big trouble and severely punished for what we did. Even after that, I got into fights all over the city of Chincheon and beyond. It was so sweet to win a big fight, but this couldn't be everything in my life. So I wanted to leave this way of life. In 10th grade, I was accepted into college when I became a semi-finalist at a national judo championship. I didn't want to waste my talent on fights for my own pride anymore. I wanted to live a meaningful life as an athlete. I went to college and majored in physical education. Then I became a PE teacher. My competitive nature was a great help in mentoring my student athletes. I mainly instructed them in judo, boxing, taekwondo, wrestling, and martial arts. My students excelled in competition and won many awards, including national championships. I once trained the entire freshman class in boxing for 2 months. Some of them became top competitors, and they swept the national competition for 5 years in a row. My principal once tempted me with yearly trips to Jeju Island for my students and me if we won 5 gold medals in the National Youth Championship. So I sent 3 of my boxing students to the weightlifting team, and that became a huge success. The following year, we won 8 gold medals in boxing and weightlifting in the National Youth Championship. It was amazing. Jae Hyuk-sa, who was a gold medalist at the 2008 Beijing Olympics, was in my weightlifting team. After that, we went to Jeju Island every year as promised. After 25 years of passion and dedication to teaching, I was promoted to vice principal. I was young, passionate, ambitious, but my new school seemed too small for me. The excitement of promotion was short-lived, and I thought, what am I doing in this small town like this? I thought I would feel like I had the whole world once I was promoted. But my happiness was brief. I was only filled with regrets. Every night I got drunk with my friends to escape from my doubts and emptiness. But when I came back to my room to sleep, emptiness visited me again, and I couldn't sleep. I especially felt bad that I was away from my children, and this thought even made me regret my whole life. Around this time, I started to go to church, but only on Sundays. It was out of respect for my older brother, who strongly encouraged me to go. But one day, a Bible verse caught my eyes. The devil put into the heart of Judas Iscariot to betray Jesus. I thought, even non-Christians know that Judas betrayed Jesus? But had it really been because the devil had put the thought into his heart? Then that means that depression, suicide, video game addiction, all of these happened because the devil put thoughts into my students' hearts. If this is true, then as long as the devil exists, no one can live with a sound mind. Right then, it became clear why I had harassed so many people and why I felt such emptiness even after I became successful in my career. I realized that I had been deceived into living as a servant of the devil, following the thoughts he has given me. From this point on, I had a burning desire to meet Jesus. Starting from the 2001 summer retreat, my pastor repeatedly proclaimed that the early church was founded only upon the gospel of the resurrection and focused on this. Then we began to have many young people submit to Christ through the gospel. It was amazing. I also came to pray and think about this continuously, preach message of the gospel of the resurrection. The early church members boldly shared the gospel with such strong conviction and joy that they even gave up their lives for it. I thought deeply about how this was possible and asked God about it. Then he showed me the lives of the disciples who had betrayed Jesus at the cross, and the conversion of Saul, who had persecuted the followers of Jesus. The disciples gave their whole lives to preaching the gospel, and they did not run away from being martyred for the gospel. They were able to do this only because they had seen Jesus raised from the dead, exactly as they had preached. Jesus was indeed raised from the dead. The Creator himself had come to this world to save me. It was so clear that Jesus was my Lord and God. Because of my wickedness of wanting to be my own God, God had sent his only Son to die instead of me and to raise him from the dead so that he'll be my Lord. But all this time, I hadn't known this and had lived only according to what I saw in this world. My life had nothing to do with Jesus. God himself had died according to the Scriptures and had been raised according to the Scriptures in order to give proof to all that Jesus was Lord. But I had not believed in him and had tried to live as the Lord of my life. I couldn't help but turn away from the wicked sin and receive the risen Jesus as the Lord of my life. Amen. Later on, while I was serving as a school principal, I read an article online. It went like this. A young man had gone to America to study abroad. One day, he called his mom and told her that a friend of his had been in a car accident and had lost all his limbs. Also, his face had become severely burnt and unrecognizable. Hearing this, his mom said, "If I were him, I'd rather die than live. What can he do even if he survived?" The next day, a friend of her son called her and said, "Your son took his own life yesterday." So her son had called to tell her about what happened to himself, pretending it had happened to someone else, only to hear his mom's cold-hearted comment. She had spoken out of mercilessness for children other than her own, but her words had driven her own son to his death. After reading this article, I felt ashamed and heartbroken as an educator. Only a while ago, I had ordered the transfer of 4 students from my school to another district due to discipline problems. They say, a soul is more precious than heaven and earth. But I had just sent them away. Although I had confessed with my lips that Jesus was my Lord, I had not thought of my students as my own children. I had considered my students' problems as someone else's problems. I repented before God with all my heart. I prayed, "God, please forgive me. I will give my life to save the souls of these students you have entrusted to me." At the start of the semester, I was planning and organizing extracurricular activities. I assigned 3 to 5 troubled students from each class, for a total of 80 students, to a Bible study club. I worked with 2 faculty advisors to complete preparations for it. Then I explained the plan to the superintendent. All teachers at my school, the parent association, and the school operating committee members, they all agreed that this was a good for the character development of the troubled students. On Saturday mornings, 25 members from my church filled the seminar room, and praise rang through the school. And every corner of the school was filled with discussion about the Word. The Holy Spirit was at work and led many students to repent the sin of not believing in Jesus and to receive the risen Jesus as their Lord. The entire school was transformed as the students were changed by the gospel. I truly came to know the power of the fellowship of believers through spreading the gospel. This was my most joyful and fruitful time as an educator and as a believer. A year later, God blessed me with an appointment as the superintendent in charge of elementary, middle, and high schools. I received it as a sign from the Lord to do greater work in saving more souls. which is His greatest joy. I embraced my new assignment with the vision of a missionary. At the start of my appointment, I announced to all employees, "I am a believer of Jesus. Please do not offer alcohol to me. And I may talk about Jesus from time to time. I ask for your understanding in this." I had many visitors at the superintendent's office. Often, they came to me with various requests. So it was easy to talk to them about the gospel. Among them were many principals. I asked for their cooperation so the gospel could be spread at each school, and they eventually agreed. After that, I invited a faithful teacher from each school to my office, and we discussed how to guide troubled students with the gospel. Middle school teachers, in particular, showed great enthusiasm, offering their time. So I gave them booklets about the resurrection, published by my church. Later, I was told that they were sharing the gospel during lunch break or after school. And they told me it was wonderful to provide solid proof through the resurrection so that everyone could believe. I prayed with all my heart that many students will be changed by the gospel during my service as the superintendent. In February last year, I served my full term and retired. As I prepared the retirement speech, I sincerely asked God for guidance. There were many things that came to my mind as my career came to a close, but I really wanted to let everyone know that only the gospel can truly change people. So I closed my speech with a 40-minute video clip of a testimony of a spiritual medium who used to enshrine gods, but was changed by the gospel after she met the risen Jesus. People usually think of retirement as a period past the prime of life. But I am so excited and thrilled for my life in retirement. During my public career, I could not spend a lot of time with my church community, with whom I'm one in life. But now I can run with them for God's vision of saving this generation through the gospel of the resurrection. Amen. We, as a church, all run the race for the mission God gave to us as witnesses of the resurrection. I will not spare my life for this great spiritual battle, just like the Apostle Paul. I will continue with my church until I give everything to the task of sharing the gospel. Thank you.